There are many challenges facing museums today. This presentation will demonstrate how new Metaverse tools increase community engagement and create multiple sources of revenue for museums today and in the future. I'd like to introduce you to my partner, Stacy Quackenbush, Vice President of Business Development at Ethos.
Thanks, Paige. Excited to be here with you today to talk about the museums. As you know, at Ethos, we've worked on many projects regarding the museum and the metaverse, and really strategizing the best way that we can do increase attendance, patron base, revenue sources. And so it's super exciting to me. And as a former member of the Museum Council, the Museum of Fine Arts Boston, I have a particularly big, warm spot in my heart for museums. And I'd like to introduce you, Paige. Paige Dansinger is kind of a rock star in the metaverse world. It's very understated. She's one of the original women that have built and explored Horizon's metaverse. Additionally, she is the founder of Better World Museums and Horizon Art Museums. Paige?
Thank you, Stacy. It's a delight to be here together at the Immerse Summit.
Thanks, Paige. I'm super excited to make this presentation with you. Shall we get started?
Let's do it. Let's give it a roll.
Awesome. Let's start with the challenges of museums today. I think this photo says it all, really. It's all about the way things used to be and the way that they don't necessarily have to be. I mean, granted, you and I are both art lovers, and there's nothing like original physical piece of art. It's textures, it's color, but what you can do in the metaverse with three-dimensional duplicates is also pretty juicy. It changes everything and brings the experience to the next level. So let's talk about the challenges. There is definitely, from my understanding and from our communication with people in the art world, a real need to increase attendance. Patron bases are very strong. They're very supportive of their museums, but they also age out, and attracting a younger audience is as important as it ever has been. There's a limited number of revenue sources, and a lot of museums have to, really rely on fundraising. Few immersive technologies. Now, you and I have seen like the biggest and best museums taking on entire teams to integrate immersive technologies. And this is changing rapidly. And we're going to be able to show everyone today how the metaverse is at the forefront of that. And really, by exercising all of these things, you prevent a decrease in interest in events, and you have greater patron retention. Additionally, one of our favorite, Paige, you and I, we've talked about this at length, love the idea that the metaverse and NFTs can help drive the preservation of collections, that museums are no longer in that terrible place of like, how do we budget money to keep the collections from aging, dismantling? And we've got some solutions for that. So I'm excited to talk about that.
The possibilities are endless, Stacy.
Yeah, and we're only getting started.
Tell me more.
Sure. I think we need to go to the next slide. Oh, you did.
I did.
So the state of museums. So one of the things that we really help with is static exhibitions. And the metaverse exhibitions can be built, rebuilt, they can be mobile, they can be interactive, and they can be changed by the patrons. There's no longer reliance on fundraising, and we'll show you that soon. I mean, there's so many different mechanisms from which to raise funds. And what we think about a lot, Paige, you and I talk about this at length, is this idea that a metaverse should never be a marketing play. I mean, maybe on occasion, but the bigger, more impactful thing to do with a metaverse is to build it as an asset, to really build it as an asset, to have long-term patron engagement, to drive revenue, to secure the preservation of collections, and to have educational opportunities to a worldwide audience at any given day, time of the day or night. And that is really where things change. And that's where metaverses become long-term assets and engagement mechanisms. We love the fact that you no longer have limited operating hours. We've been working a lot on these new technologies where we have 24/7 patron engagement via docent avatars, which is really going to change the game. And any kind of regional museum will now have worldwide access 24/7. And like we talked about before, less preservation compromises and expanded patron base.
It's exciting. These
It's super exciting.
opportunities open up museums literally around the world 24/7. How can
So
we
yeah.
push these experiences beyond our imagination, Stacy?
Well, it's already happening, Paige. You and I love this slide. This idea that, oh my goodness, like there are over 7 million people at Nike Town. Like there are millennials spending 7 hours every week in the metaverse. 2030, it's expected that the industry is going to be 678 billion with a B. I mean, it's already happening. You and I are part of it every day. And there are a lot of people kind of dancing around the exterior, wondering how they get in, what is it really, and how do we work with it? So we're going to demystify it a little bit today. So let's talk about metaverse solutions. So what the metaverse for museums really provides is the ability to have dynamic interactive exhibitions. So for me, you and I have talked about this, Paige, like I get in trouble in museums. I'm the person who has to hold themselves back from touching and feeling, and I want to change things around. And in my head, I'm making all these new scenarios. But in the metaverse, you can create exhibitions so that that's actually the case. Like your patrons can move them around, they can change them, they can alter them, they can create experiments and educational opportunities that they guide and direct and own. And when they have ownership over the experience, their loyalty to that experience grows, their ability to communicate it to others. One of the things that Paige and I love to build out in our metaverse experiences is outbound socials. So not only have I gone in and changed the Basquiat exhibition, I have sent socials out to everybody in my community that I'm now in this virtual museum doing this incredible curation of these priceless works that I've always been a fan of. So immersive education activations, let's talk a little bit about that, because what the metaverse allows for are the integration of 3D objects and real-time video. So if you're doing some sort of symposium about art, sometimes in the real world, you can't touch that vessel. It's delicate, it's fragile, it can't be exposed to light. In the metaverse, you can have an absolutely photorealistic 3D representation that you can turn upside down, sideways. You could even dissect it in real time in 3D space above you. Additionally, if you want to bring in a speaker from around the world, you could pop up a video and that person could be live in your symposium in the metaverse. So we always see this as a major opportunity to advance education.
I love that. I've seen that happen with video and holograms.
Yeah. Oh, holograms. We haven't even talked about holograms, but yeah, holograms are another way to make that happen. You can also age things. You could actually predict the aging of any given piece of art or any particular, like say, outdoor installation that you're examining in that educational context. And I think one of the things that you're really passionate about, Paige, and kind of been standing behind is this idea that metaverse experiences need to be accessible to everyone. And we deal with a lot of clients out of Asia and India, and not everyone has access to a $3,000 gaming computer. So we really are pioneering this idea that the metaverse access can be, should be, and often is browser based. And we think that's really important to have that option in most cases, and for museums especially so.
As well as mobile. We have people around the world who are connecting through the metaverse solely through their mobile devices.
Absolutely. Really good point. And it can't be underscored, the value of that. And that's really part of why you and I put a lot of time and energy on solving that problem and making that an option for our museums. So let's talk about the metaverse features. We talked about some of the solutions, and let's talk about how those solutions map to features. So we talked a little bit about this idea, like, yeah, we want 24/7 access to the museums. The patrons want 24/7 access to the museums. Museums want to be seen by the world audience, not just their regional audience. So what is this 24/7 docent we're talking about, Paige? It's really realistic avatars that function as docents in the metaverse. And they do all of the same things that you would do in a museum, except because it's a metaverse museum, you can, like you said earlier when we were talking today, Paige, you're like, you could take down walls. You could tell the docent, I want to take down this wall, I want to expand it, and let's put in a mountain range. And we're going to take this art and we're going to put it on the mountain range. And that is actually feasible in the metaverse. And at the end of that exhibition, the entire metaverse set can go back to the way it was originally structured. No damage, no additional cost. It just happens because it's virtual. Easy to use interface is absolutely essential because once again, patrons of museums are of all age groups and ranges, and they all have different computer capabilities. 3D assets of collections, we talked a little bit about that. Video presentations, talked about that. Photorealism, let's talk about that one, Paige. Paige just recently built this incredible metaverse for Vikram, which is one of the highest grossing movies of all time out of Bollywood. It premiered at the Cannes Film Festival and it was completely photorealistic. We're seeing the film world really engaging that capability because you can go from the IRL narrative into the metaverse version and you feel like you've stepped into it realistically. It's no longer, the metaverse no longer has to look like a game. It no longer has to look like rudimentary computer graphics. We have those capabilities right now. And patron agency, I mean, that is for you and I one of our favorite things. Like we talked about it earlier in this conversation. It was really how can a user change it and affect it in a way that's meaningful to them. And the thing that we haven't talked about yet is when you affect it and change it and move it, you learn. And that learning through doing lasts you a lifetime. Now, I love bragging about you, Paige. So I'm going to bring up the Better World Museum. Like I introduced you and I said you were the founder of it, but let's really talk about the power of the Better World Museum. The Better World Museum was actually founded on the premise of patron agency. It was built to be deconstructed and reconstructed in real time on an ongoing basis. And your thinking around that is that if you allow that, you allow the community to do that, you're ultimately building a better world. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, Paige?
Of course, Stacy. Thank you for your warm introduction. Better World Museum in its current iteration in Horizon Worlds is a white wall template museum where members of the Artist in Residence program are invited to literally dismantle the museum to make their vision of a better world. One angel artist created an homage to Black women empowerment. And Mark Zuckerberg even talked about Better World Museum and angel artist. This way, the museum becomes of, by, for all of the community.
I love that, Paige. I mean, I think it's really moving. And for young artists and people pioneering the space, that opportunity is pretty vital, substantial, and helpful in the evolution of their career, especially when it can get the eyes of the world on it. Once again, we talk about how you get people to participate from all over the world, but you also have eyes from all over the world watching what's being done in your metaverse museum. And that's pretty substantial. Another thing we haven't really talked about is that the metaverse museum doesn't have to be a digital twin of what your museum is in IRL. And actually, a lot of times we recommend it be the opposite. Like you can utilize an exhibition to create a wing of your metaverse museum that really replicates or exemplifies a style of an artist. You can do it to represent a historical notion. And all of those things are relevant and vital, and another way to connect people to art and to education and to art history. And that's how we build a better world, right? It's through that education, that empathy, that community, and that inclusiveness. So let's talk about the activities that drive that.
Oh, I would love to share a bit more about museum activities, especially in the metaverse where, well, anything is possible. Truly, I like to say, if you will, it is no dream in the metaverse. We create games, quests, and challenges. We can create artist sub-metaverses. We can make collection-based adventures from action games, period games, role-playing games, spoken story areas, patron-curated exhibitions, lectures, events, and symposiums. And of course, immersive art-based wellness activities. At Horizon Art Museum, an ever-expanding museum in Horizon that takes over 30 worlds to the state, we invite members of the community and share skills of how to world build so that members are building the actual museum itself. Through this program and amplifying the voices of diverse people, we've made micro donations and compensated artists to create the sense of empowerment, belonging, agency that creates a sense that the museum is theirs.
I love that. I love that. And that's another really great example of the metaverse and museums changing the lives of artists and people in the community and really bridging the gap between patrons, fans, and artists. There's something on this slide, though, I think we should touch on that I found really inspiring. So the immersive art-based wellness, a lot of the museum directors and curators that we've talked to over the past couple of years have really been inspired to incorporate wellness programming and to utilize art as the gateway to better neurological states, to better brain states, to better physical well-being, to more more calm, peace, solitude, and to really alleviate stress. And I think that's a really compelling way to get the community back into the physical museums, but also into the metaverse. It's also a way that we can take, say, a person's favorite work of art and build a 360-degree immersive environment in the Metaverse Museum. And we can put appropriate sounds and lights to transform that art into a mechanism for their well-being and calm. And that's something that really is exciting. And I love that the museums are pioneering that ability.
Stacy, I couldn't support this more. By using the metaverse and museums to dissolve isolations and feeling of overwhelming powerlessness, one is able to create that agency that allows people to wonder. And when you wonder about what is possible in the world, and you have a transformation in the metaverse where you're creating and having agency, then you can transform your own life. It's not just rebuilding a world in the metaverse. It's really rebuilding your own life outside of the metaverse. The way that will impact you, your families, your community groups can be unlimited in the way that can build a better world. You say if people are building in the metaverse together, then they can build a better world outside of the metaverse together.
I love that. So NFT integrations beyond the ordinary. Now we're going to start talking about revenue. We're going to start to transition out of just experience, but experience as long-term asset and additional revenue driver.
This is important also, Stacy. I just want to say that without we talk a lot about agency in this presentation, and I really feel strongly that without financial empowerment that happens through NFTs and the potential of NFTs with different utilities, that, well, you wouldn't have true agency or equity. You would really just be making the motions. True equity needs financial equity.
So let's talk about how to make that happen. There are sometimes barriers to entry when you're utilizing NFTs. All of our content at Ethos is now being streamed from blockchain, and that actually provides us a lot of capabilities. We can have user access wallets, which means you don't have to, sync up your wallet from elsewhere as you create your access to our metaverse. That's the same mechanism that you use to create a wallet in our world. We can accept crypto, cash, and credit payments. We have no gas fees, negligible environmental impact, which is really important to us. The ability to do in Metaverse minting really changes things. In the same way that you might buy a print of a great work of art from the gift shop, you could mint in an exhibition a piece of art and buy that NFT in real time, which is a pretty interesting concept. And the minting of that work could be limited to that one exhibition, which creates greater demand and value in that NFT into the future. Additionally, that same NFT that you're minting in the museum metaverse could grant you access or gate access to sub-metaverses that really allow you to explore the life and times of that artist. It could give you access to special events. I mentioned I was on the Museum Council. We did a lot of events to raise funds for the Museum of Fine Art. It could really allow you to become a patron of a specific group and grant you membership to that group. So it could be mid-century modern paintings. It could be Egyptian pottery based upon the NFT that you purchase in Metaverse in real time during an exhibition. We love that. Now, this is where we start to look at real long-term patron engagement and multiple revenue sources. And this is exactly an example of brand-based utility. And this is at the focal point of building a greater community engagement strategy for museums.
I would want NFTs that were from sculpture parks.
We both have a love of sculpture parks for sure. So let's talk about the NFT benefits. One of the things that I love to talk about with you, but also with the directors and curators at museums, Paige, is how do we map the NFT drops to the collections? And how do we do it in a way where we're releasing packs that contain limited numbers of NFTs that represent works of art? And we have the capabilities of doing 3D NFTs as well, and creating games around this, gamifying the NFTs you collect, getting them in certain groups to provide you access, rewards, perhaps the ability to view very rare collections, perhaps the ability to go to talks with artists or with curators, really making a rich environment out of the NFTs that unlock the museum and allow you to play and engage at a higher level. And that's something that really needs to be considered. And it's very exciting when our museum clients build out metaverses and they really pick different collections from their museum for different quarters of the year. And we do different NFT drops, different exhibitions that map to those drops. And we have this really rich environment that continues on for many years to come. So ongoing revenue, we know that there's primary and secondary NFT sales, and the museum can participate in those secondary revenue into perpetuity, which is amazing. The museum can also, especially if it's a living artist, allow the living artist to participate into perpetuity or their trust as those NFTs sell in secondary markets. This is prime for younger audiences. Younger audiences have been really big fans of the NFT and have driven that market and the crypto market, and they understand this, they get it, they love it. Let's talk about antiquities preservation. This is one of my favorites, right? Because you can fractionalize an NFT. So you could, make a piece of art, an NFT, fractionalize it. The fractions could actually pay for the preservation and will sell very highly at a very fast rate if it's a popular piece, and at much more than you might anticipate. So we're seeing more and more museums doing that. They fractionalize it and keep the lion's share of the original art so that it doesn't have to go anywhere. But it's really, it's very much more meaningful if I'm not just donating money to preserve the art, but I actually own a tiny little share in that too. And for some people, the bragging rights behind that are pretty substantial, and they could put the NFT up in a screen on their house and say, yep, I own a piece of that.
That's right. I'd put it on Instagram in a second.
Oh yeah, we haven't even talked about the social media. You're so right. Other people are going there. And then virtual physical memberships, we haven't talked about this, but NFTs can actually unlock, they could gate, or they could just provide you an expanded level of membership in the virtual or physical or both. It could be a hybrid. We have the ability for NFTs sold through our platform to monitor the NFT holders and incentivize them or reward them for their patronage, their involvement in the community, for their activity in the metaverse. And that could be, for example, BTS footage dropped to their wallet of a piece being restored. It could be special footage of an archaeological site being excavated for a very special piece of pottery that might be dear to their interests. So things like that are really quite impressive, and they're all part of the ability to provide super patron incentivization.
It sounds like you're describing as well an opportunity through the blockchain to do sort of a hyper personalization, right? So that people are also receiving content that might be driven by data or AI capabilities that are intertwined within the program itself.
Yes, that I think is the expanded view. I think that it's a little bit more simple at the moment, and but yes, that is the bigger, more expanded view. But I think initially just simple statistics received on activity that could be very easy to drive some special features to the NFT holders.
Exciting. The future and the possibilities are endless. Thank you.
For sure. So additional revenue beyond expectations is really what we always aim for. And we think that everybody building a metaverse, whether or not you do it with us or do it with somebody else, should really consider that. This should be an asset being built, not a short-term entity that you're going to abandon. We like to think about it in terms of, beginning to build a city. If you start to build the infrastructure for a city, you want people to come, inhabit, live, visit, vacation in that city, right? It doesn't make sense to build out that infrastructure to have an event and then everyone vacates the city. I mean, that's a very important thing that you've built that has got the ability to grow and achieve and to drive revenue. So if you consider that from its onset, you have much more power to build something that is very effective for your target demographic.
That's right. So when you build a world, it's an opportunity, a platform for so much more.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the revenue possibilities that support this. We talked a little bit about NFTs. It was a very high level conversation. It can get very complex very quickly, but it is definitely ripe for exploration. And NFTs, there's been a lot of controversy about them. And the controversy really has to do with when you're buying an NFT as a digital file, as a replica of a piece of art. But when you give that NFT utility and it starts to unlock things and it starts to provide benefits, then it's a very different thing. It becomes more like a membership, and it becomes more of an engagement vehicle, and something that you can even gamify your experience by. And that is something that really draws people in and keeps them in. Merchandise, we haven't even discussed the virtual merchandise versus the physical merchandise. Paige, you have had such experience with this. And so anything we could do in the physical, we could do in the virtual, and we can sell in the virtual. So everything that's in your gift shop can also be a virtual item, we can do it, we could do it as 3D objects that you can walk around and carry through the metaverse and place places and interact with. So it's a very different and more robust idea than it had been even like 3 or 5 years ago.
Oh my gosh, yes. I just bought the coolest hat in the metaverse.
Yes, you'd mentioned that.
Yeah, I'm in love.
I actually bought a dog in the metaverse, and I took it on an interview with me. I had a metaverse interview, and I was like, I'm gonna buy a dog and bring the dog.
I love it.
It was pretty fun, actually. And this is the way the world is changing, right? Like, yeah, it'd be completely inappropriate to bring an IRL dog to an interview, but in the metaverse,
it's pretty
no
cool.
One's bothered by it. Yeah, it's very different.
Yes. Well,
so
tell
let's
me
talk
more.
Experiences. So once again, experiences can be events in the metaverse. And those events you could charge tickets for. So going back to my experience and the Museum Council, Museum of Fine Arts, we used to do a lot of black tie events. And we would do, set design and food and special guests and like all sorts of amazing things, right? And one of the things I love about the metaverse personally is that all of that stuff that changed the museum for the night, like the set design and the flowers and the food, is exactly what we could do in the metaverse. So you build your museum metaverse and you have a gala in the physical. We could do the gala in the virtual and do all the bells and whistles you would do in the physical.
But
more. And our team, Paige and mine's team, we've been working on some patent pending technology that bridges the IRL experience with the virtual experience. And that's where things really hit their stride and go to the next level. And that's where you truly have inclusivity and worldwide engagement. And then memberships, like we talked about physical memberships, and museums have so many now, like so many memberships that really target people and their interests. You could do exactly the same in the metaverse. And fundraising, we talked about this a little bit, and we talked about the sharding and NFTs. I also think that the virtual symposium is really an exciting way to fundraise. Selling tickets to educational events where you get the ability to pull in the 3D models, where you get to look at them in real time, dissect them, reassemble them, and you've also got the ability to do live video streams from all over the world. It's just going to change the way people interact. The private events, we talked a little bit about that. And then exclusive access. The more that you participate, the more that gates you the ability to unlock other things. And that's pretty exciting. I mean, it allows for things like when I talk about unlocking, right? Like, I don't mean to be elitist about that when I say that. It could be something as simple as you've got a series of artists in residence in the metaverse, and they've got their own studios. And that that artist gets to unlock exclusive access to their section of the metaverse to build whatever they're working on. So it can be a variety of different things when I talk about exclusive access, but you could actually have a patron fund the artist in residence in the metaverse and that particular area that they get to unlock. So with that, the possibilities are endless. And every time we work with a new museum client, we not only learn more, we solve more problems for them, we advance technology, and our creativity gets advanced as well.
I've always wanted to sleep in the period rooms at the Met Museum. Can you imagine how the metaverse can make that completely happen? How you could literally float in above a period room?
You just gave me chills. Yeah, that's one of my favorite places on the planet. If you're watching this, people at the Met, we love you. And thank you, everyone. I hope this inspired sparks of creativity, imagination, inspiration, and you leave here building robust, beautiful metaverses that inspire generations to come and provide ample revenue to your museums that really solves a lot of your immediate problems.
Thank you so much, Stacy, for joining me today to talk about the challenges facing museums today and unpacking how new metaverse tools increase community engagement and create multiple sources of revenue for museums.
Thank you, Paige. It's such a pleasure being with you.
Thank you.